What's up, everyone? It's the interview queen Alicia Toot here, and be sure to watch True Heel Heat.
Welcome to True Heel Heat, the place where we use insider terms because we think we know what the fuck we're talking about, even though we don't. My name's Maxwell Jacob Friedman, and I'm better than you, and you know it.
What's up, True Heel Heat? True Heel Heat. What's up? True Heel Heat. All hands on me. Hello, everyone. It's hardcore legend Mick Foley wishing a nice day to everyone there, right there at True Heel Heat. Yeah.
Yo, what up? You know what it is. It's your boy AJ Francis reporting to you live from New York City, the birthplace of hip-hop. And I'm telling you that I'm only tuned in with True Heel Heat Wrestling. Holla at me.
Hello. It is me, your True Heel Phenom, SP3. We are live on the True Heel Heat, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We finally made it to the end of Dark Side of the Ring, Season 5, Episode 10, Black Saturday, The Rise of Vince McMahon. When, of course, I am joined here, as always, to discuss Dark Side of the Ring with my beautiful co-host, the princess of all the True Heels, Miss Krssi Love. How are you doing?
What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday. We at the end. Sad to say. Damn. Sad.
So
But I think we got something else coming up in like the next month, right? That's gonna hold us down.
In June, we got something to whet our appetites of Dark Side of the Ring, as they have the new show. What is it called? Who Killed WCW, produced by $7 Entertainment, which is The Rock, along with the creators of Dark Side of the Ring.
Interesting. All right, so I'm here for it. Let's do it.
There we go. So yes, this ain't the end of us recapping and reviewing documentary style of professional wrestling, but we appreciate y'all if you have been joining us for our Dark Side of the Ring Season 5 reviews. We've had a lot of fun over the last 2 months reviewing Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, 2 months? Jesus.
Yeah, the highs and the lows of Dark Side of the Ring that we've experienced over the last 10 weeks with this season here, but hey, we made it to the end. So we appreciate y'all. Show that appreciation back the simplest way possible. Drop the thumbs up on this video. Share this video with all your wrestling fans, friends, and family on all your favorite social media platforms. If you're new to the True Heel Heat YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to stay notified for all the great content here. And of course, sound off in the live chat. You know we love to interact with all of you here and hear your thoughts on Dark Side of the Ring. So sound off in the live chat. We'll try to highlight as many of your comments as possible. But of course, as always, if you're feeling generous, you want to give back to what we do here, you can send a super chat donation. Any dollar amount matters, and it goes back to the contributors that you see on screen with us here. So we always appreciate the support. So Dark Side of the Ring, Season 5, Episode 10, the finale. Miss Krssi Love, what was your overall thoughts on Black Saturday, the rise of Vince McMahon, and what was your kind of like your knowledge of Black Saturday before this episode here?
I mean, I didn't really know about Black Saturday, so it was news to me, but I feel like the episode wasn't really about Vince. I feel like it was about the takeover of how the territories were going and how Vince got help getting it in the end. That's what I feel like it is.
Yeah. He was the one that ended the territories, basically, and seems appropriate for Vince McMahon killing things. We got Goku in the chat with us, who's been joining us for our Dark Side of the Ring Season 5 reviews. He says a fascinating episode. That is definitely, to say the least, here.
Correct.
We got Ruben, who says, I saw that episode last night that basically redefined turning professional wrestling into sports and entertainment into the mega $1 billion corporate conglomerate that it is now. Indeed.
True. Very true, yes.
We also got Goku, who says, I watched your Bash at the Beach video, and you mentioned Vice doing a 4-parter on WCW, and now it's going to happen. Wow, that's crazy, Goku, that we said it back then, that was when the first time that they mentioned it, and that was what, during Season 4, was the Bash at the Beach.
So they're going to do a whole, like another documentary on this, on like the start of Bash at the Beach? Is that what he's saying?
No, the documentary is it's the Who Killed WCW is a 4-part.
Oh, that one. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, but that was when the news came out. I think that was last year. Last year was Season 4. So yeah.
Okay.
We got Chris in the chat who says, good evening from the UK to the awesome and amazing SP3 to the beautiful and lovely Miss Krssi Love. How are you both? I'm doing well. Now that I see you in the chat.
Yes, thanks.
We have Goku who says this whole episode is just everyone trying to fuck each other over. Basically,
that is a fact.
And that's why there wasn't a lot of information in this episode. It was a lot of people's feelings and feelings being hurt, basically.
And how can I get over and fuck that person over?
I'm gonna screw you over. I want to fuck you over. You fuck me over.
Not giving me my money, things like that. Yeah,
basically,
that's what it is. Yeah.
But keep sounding off. We want to hear your thoughts on this episode here. But me and Krssi Love are gonna talk about it the final time. Dark Side of the Ring, Season 5. Another reminder that Chris Jericho is our narrator. We start with WrestleMania. Number 1, as Jericho says, the wrestling world has been dominated for over 40 years by the WWE and their owner, Vince McMahon. In the early 80s, Vince was just staking his claim in the wrestling world, divided into territories. We hear from basically the guy who's been on every episode of Season 5, Jim Cornette.
MVP season.
Who says that in 1983, wrestling fans knew Vince Jr. as the announcer of the WWF TV program. Those in wrestling knew Vince was the son of Vince McMahon Sr. and has just bought the company from his father in 1982. Cornette introduces himself as an historian and says that he has studied Black Saturday and its effect on modern professional wrestling ever since. He notes that when Vince bought the WWF, the business in that part of the country had never been stronger. Dave Meltzer is here. Uncle Dave is here with us of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. He's a bit of a historian himself. and he gives us a brief history of the NWA and how it was basically the overarching, powering, governing body of all the territories in professional wrestling. Dave and Jim both say that wrestling has always had its infighting between the territories. Cornette compares it to the mafia and talks about the yearly meeting all the leaders of the territories
I could
had.
believe that. I could believe it was like the mob. I could definitely believe all of that. He's not lying about that part. I so believe it. Or like, Vince came in with like two big guys, or like the other guys came in with like two big guys and they had guns. I believe all of that stuff.
Yes. Like, you can basically pinpoint all these people as like mob bosses.
Absolutely.
Like, you definitely like see that Vince wants to be Tony Montana and
Yep.
just shoot up everything and be the boss and take over
Put his
everything.
way. Yep.
Tony Khan is more like Chris from The Sopranos, the nephew. He's the nephew. He's trying to prove himself, but he's a little wet behind the ears and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I can
do this. Yes, yeah.
I can do this with all of them. I can do this with all of them. Trust you. We got Cornette comparing it to the mafia. They all looked at Vince Jr. as a punk kid, not knowing that Vince wanted to be the Walt Disney of professional wrestling. What a comparison,
right? I was like, "Dang, Jim Cornette dropping some like bombs on us, yo."
What if you know the history of Walt Disney
it's the
and you
same
know
thing.
the history of Vince McMahon?
The same thing.
Jesus.
Same thing. Yep.
Jim Cornette is running Georgia Championship Wrestling at this time, and it is one of the territories that is still making solid money. Cornette calls Barnett a charmer, and he was the guy called to make all the connections. Gerald Briscoe is here, and he says that he got along well with Barnett and learned a lot from him. Dave says that Barnett was different than most wrestling guys, as he was into fine arts, and he wasn't allowed in the NWA for years, as they had an old boys club, and they didn't want someone who was gay in their group. Cornette says Barnett was a cutthroat behind the scenes who could cut your balls off and shove them down your throat, and you would thank him for it later. Barnett was friends with Ted Turner, who we hear for the first time in this episode, who aired Georgia Championship Wrestling nationally on his cable station WTBS. Dave notes that Georgia was the first wrestling show on cable television, and everyone thought Turner was nuts for putting an Atlanta regional wrestling show on national TV. And wrestling ends up being the biggest show on the station. So he looks like a genius in the end.
Right. Yep.
All the big stars from the NWA, it's a plethora of them, would fly into Atlanta to do some shows to get national recognition. Briscoe says it was the #1 TV show on cable television. It was a combination of Gordon Soley's voice and the Hall of Fame talent that assembled in Georgia. We see highlights of like Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express, the Road Warriors, the Junkyard Dog, the Ted DiBiase, Roddy Piper. Like, the list goes on and on. It's a who's who. We hear from Tommy Rich, who of course introduces himself as former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. He says that it was a crazy time, and watching the fans was sometimes more fun than watching the boys in the ring. The studio only held 100 people, and they would bring in Boy Scout clubs and Girl Scout clubs to watch the show every single week. We meet Bobby Simmons, who was a former Georgia Championship Wrestling employee. He would be one of the people setting up the ring and basically organizing the fans inside. He said they would pack them in like sardines. And then we hear of Ole Anderson for the first time. He was in charge of the matchmaking for Georgia Championship Wrestling and ruled the promotion with an iron fist. Cornette says that Ole was one of the smartest individuals around. We hear from Joe Hamilton Jr., which got me to pop because I was like, that's Nick Patrick.
Yeah.
Nick Patrick. That's the referee.
I was like, that wasn't even his real name?
Nope.
Shocked me. I was like, I was bamboozled my whole life.
He says that you either hated or you loved Oli, and then he quickly corrects himself and says that it was hard to love him. So you either hated or you liked Oli.
Yep, that's it.
Makes me so happy to see Nick Patrick. I'm so happy.
He looks great too, by the way.
He hasn't aged that. It's aged pretty
No,
well. He hasn't
yeah,
aged too
he
much.
looks very well.
Oli was a hard ass that made people earn everything. Next up was Oli's son, Bryant Rogowski. And he says that what you saw with his dad is what you saw. People believed what they saw from him, whether in real life or on TV. He says the guy he saw on TV was the guy that sat down for dinner with him. And this was filmed actually before Oli's recent passing in February. As his son notes, he was recently diagnosed with MS, and he is in a state where he can't do a lot for himself. Oli was all about business, and he bought into the Georgia company rather early in his career. Briscoe and his brother also bought into the company. Cornette gives a rundown of the half dozen people or so that bought into the company and are the management team for Georgia Championship Wrestling. And basically they had a meeting. They basically go over it's like Oli, the Briscoes, Jim Barnett, some original owner, another promoter.
They had
and
like almost like 8 different people like that was like had a stake in this whole
I lost
thing.
count.
Yeah,
I
I think
lost
it was
count.
about 8 though.
Yeah,
because I was like, again, the story is going all over the place. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's about Vince, I didn't feel like it was about Vince until like we got into like maybe 30 minutes in, maybe.
Yeah, they started with Vince, and then we went into basically Georgia Championship Wrestling and
Correct.
Oli.
Yeah, there we go.
Oli started questioning where the money was going as things were being skimmed off the top. And apparently Jim Barnett was basically skimming. They knew some would go to pay off officials and politicians, but not all of it. They expanded north a bit as the money was going into the pockets of Mr. Barnett. Oli was the only one to question Barnett, and Cornette tells a story of Oli getting into the books. He basically breaks into Barnett's office when he's in Asia buying new suits, and Oli kicks down his door and saw where Barnett was spending $3,000 on phone bills. He had a personal chef and a driver. They had a meeting, and checks were handed out about a calendar that was sold. Oli was able to rally the troops. He comes into the meeting. He got a majority of the owners on his side. He takes all the checks. Bobby says Oli told him to put the checks back in the bank and that he worked for him now. Oli said he was running the company and everything would be done this way. And Cornette says, "Hell hath no fury like a Barnett scorn."
Oh, Jim Cornette. But yeah, this was crazy that he was using up the money. He's getting his suits. He had the private chef, and then like people kept saying like, "What's happening?" Like it was raising people's eyebrows basically, and rightfully so because that's where people weren't being paid because he was using up the money for himself.
Yeah, even though they're selling out all these places, they got the TV deal. And the people are like, my check is looking kind of light here. It's kind of light here. This envelope is kind of light. We got Goku. He says this episode feels like an episode of the Twilight Zone. It really does.
It does. Yeah.
It does.
And you're right. Goku, you're on it today.
Chris says, I did know about this Black Saturday a little bit before this episode even got announced, and it was a huge thing that never thought would happen. We also got Frantic World who says, what's up, SP3, Krssi, and chat. I'm finishing up this episode now, and F Vince and everyone involved in killing the wrestling territories. We got also Goku says the blood oath was crazy. We will get to that.
Oh, we're gonna get. Oh my god. Because he kind of contradicts himself and like, you know, and it like, but we'll talk about it. Yeah,
it's just so ass backwards and everything.
Yeah.
Oli tries to convince people that Jim was embezzling money. Jim's defense was that it was the cost of doing business. Louise Cochran is here. She's another former employee of Georgia Championship Wrestling, and she says that the company was in a lot of debt because Jim overpromised. That was an opening for Oli. and they had a talk with Barnett. They basically come to his house and basically pressure him. It seems like the idea was for Ole was going to be the president, and if Jim didn't like it, they would toss him off his balcony. That was like
That's some mobster stuff. That's some
I was
like,
yo, you're Suge Knight.
yeah. Not even
Jesus.
Suge Knight. That's some Goodfellas type of deal. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, they come over and they're gonna throw you over the balcony, bro. Like, what's our money?
That's Suge Knight. Suge Knight would do that shit too.
Yeah, he did do that. You're right. He went to jail for it too.
Briscoe calls out Ole for picking on a smaller Barnett. Cornette says fucking with Barnett can ruin your career. Barnett knew he had to wait for his moment, as everyone knew he would do something eventually. Back to Vince, as he maintained status quo at first. Behind the scenes, he had ideas, as they put it, ideas.
For
The
this
first thing
takeover.
he wanted to get was television. His plan was to take over the TV time of other promotions. He hires a special liaison, Jim Barnett. The NWA has the annual meeting in 1983, and this is where Vince and Barnett blindsided everyone with their resignations. Cornette says that it meant one of two things. That means that they were either out of wrestling completely or they were going to be competition to the NWA. Ole knew what it meant, and he told them the gloves would be off. The problem was that you couldn't handle the business in 1983 and 1984 like you did in 1953 and 1954. Also, Vince wasn't going to play that game, and he had Barnett in his corner. We hear from Bob Roop, who was a former pro wrestler. He says that that Barnett was getting older but needed to keep working. There was an unspoken agreement that everyone was respectful of the other territories. Ole's son says Barnett and McMahon were working together right away and started their plan to sabotage Georgia Championship Wrestling. Vince would go to stations and offer them $2,000 a week to take his show and stop showing Ole's. Vince McMahon is dirty. This is the same Vince that paid for someone to get off with murder. So,
I mean, yeah. So this part doesn't sound surprising at all. Like this, like we know this person's track record, and this is where it stems from. This is like the beginning of the like life of like him being this like trying to take over the world type of deal. Yeah.
Conniving villain. He's a conniving villain.
Correct. Yep.
Not the one accused of and Vince is also accused of shitting on people. So to be fair.
Yep.
Georgia has no contract, so they start losing their reach on these television stations. Vince would steal buildings and apparently give anonymous tips to cops about workers in other promotions selling drugs. Ole's son admits that his dad never found proof, but it was just funny that these things just started happening once Vince started his plans. Vince got the USA Network TV slot from the Southwest Championship Wrestling in San Antonio, as they could not afford the slot anymore. All American Wrestling debuted in the slot. He told the other promoters that he had a national show now, and they could send him tapes to get their guys over. You know, just trying to help the other territories out.
A little guy out, just a little the common man. Let's help them out. Sure.
Nope, it was all a ploy, as Vince wanted the tapes because he wanted to sign the top stars from the other promotions. Again, that's our Vince. I really don't blame him. I mean, it's cutthroat, it's a business, but he takes every big name from Hulk Hogan from the AWA, Junkyard Dog, Roddy Piper, Ted DiBiase. He immediately has Hulk Hogan win the WWF Championship in Madison Square Garden, and now Vince is off to the races. He has his superhero to put all over TV, as Vince knew controlling TV was the key. Meltzer says that Vince was public enemy number one, and he doesn't doubt the stories that that people put hits out on Vince. And that brings us to Barnett tells Vince that he thinks that he can get the WTBS spot, and Vince knew that that would let him take over every territory in the country.
Man, oh man, did he like? Whew, why he put that battery in his bag? But I guess
it's like he didn't even need it though.
he didn't know. He really didn't know. Like, you just help him out just a little bit more because he was gonna get it regardless. It's just how he went about it, though.
You just handed them over something like to
Mm-hmm.
win the war. Like it's kind of in a sense like Cody or Punk in the AEW WWE perception war, because AEW was never going to catch WWE as far as a business.
Correct.
When a business has a 50-year head start on another business,
It
that's
did-
literally impossible for you when they are the main show in town, when they're the only
Mhm.
show in town.
They do
It's
more shows
literally
than you. Yes.
it's literally impossible for you to take over their business or get their reach, their international reach, especially. But they were winning the perception war in 2021 until everything went down with Punk. And then you have Cody make the jump in 2022, and then that starts WWE's skyrocketing
Domino.
and completely ending any type of perception war with AEW.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Once you had one of the people that helped start this business go back, yeah, you kind of knew it was like, okay, this is world domination.
Yeah, there's a little different because Cody helped start AEW.
He put
Jim
his money
Barnett was
down.
just
Yeah.
a guy who got them on TV and was a part of the management team. But
Exactly.
basically, Ole and basically kicking him out and not getting an explanation and not really working the business in a business sense, trying to rough arm people and work like it's 1950s, like your mobsters.
Yeah.
That's
what happens. Yeah.
You hand them over. You hand Vince the key person who could help him take everything over.
That is correct. Yep. You someone that you should have held close to you, you pushed them out, and look what happened.
Yeah. We get Trey Jones in the chat who says $2,000 a week. Yes. He was like.
And back then, that was a lot of money. Give me that little money on the side. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was some money in the 80s, yo. You had $2,000. Do some things with $2,000.
Goku says Jim Barnett said, "You want war? You're gonna get one."
Yep.
We got Trey Jones says, "Kicking the door, waving the 4-4."
4-4.
That's what. Biggie, Oli, give me one more chance. Oli, give me one more chance.
Love that, Trey Jones. Good one.
Oli was desperate to hold his territory, and Cornette says that the in-ring product started to suffer as well. Oli was using the leftovers of a lot of his talent because a lot of the main stars went over to the WWF. They weren't spending the money on the top talent like they used to, which frustrated the boys. The Briscoes wanted to push Oli out of the territory as they felt he wasn't running the business any better than Jim Barnett was, apparently, but they needed a majority vote. The lawyers told them that they could not have a meeting without stating a purpose. They went to a bar to regroup, and Oli showed up to meet them, basically to pressure them and be like, "Yo, what the fuck y'all calling meetings for, bro?"
Right.
So they told him they were going to take the company over from him. They wanted to know why the money in the bank can't be paid out. And Oli's son goes over how his dad had to explain to them why they needed that cash in the bank to basically book places, to run venues, to book promoters and promotion and all this other stuff. So yeah, it basically he explains himself, it seems, well, but he's not really a business person. So I don't think it doesn't sound like they were even buying it.
Right. They seem like you can tell us these things, but you can't show or give account for where the money is, though. That was his problem. He didn't have the receipts for it.
So the dividends checks would come when he would get another $100,000. He reminded them that he would benefit from that as well because he receives a dividends check. So they basically come to an agreement. They basically go back to Oli's hotel and they come up with a whole agreement where they give him time. They all made the agreement that if they would ever sell their stock, they would have to offer it to the other board members first. Oli pulls out a knife and says that this is going to be a blood oath, a blood agreement. he convinces them. Gerald Briscoe goes over it, and he basically says yeah, I thought it was a crazy when he said it,
Right.
but then 10 minutes later, he convinced us to do it as well.
Like what? Like how? Like how? Like you just say you wasn't gonna do it, but then 10 minutes later, and you was like, yeah, we did it.
Like, he convinced everyone to do it. Ole's son says his dad was a man of his word and would never tell a lie. You can easily see how proud he is of his dad and how highly he thinks of him. And the Briscoes are looking to sell just a couple of months later. They reach out to Barnett, and Barnett says that he isn't interested, but Barnett puts them in touch with Vince. Briscoe says that he still jokes with Vince that he flew them up coach to LaGuardia Airport.
He said he gets on them all the time for flying them in coach to LaGuardia at that.
LaGuardia, exactly, the smallest of all New York airports. The Briscoes felt they could sell because Ole broke the agreement first by not paying out. Vince basically asks them if they could get him 51% of the territory, and they told him that they could. Barnett knew that the lay of the land with the stockholders and could get what he wanted from everyone. By the end, Vince owned 67.5% of Georgia Championship Wrestling. Ole's son brings up the agreement that they had to sell to the other stockholders first, and he was assured by the lawyers that they would protect him. Well, that turned out not to be true, says the son.
Unfortunately, it. So you thought it was, but then you have to read those little fine prints that those people put in. Fuck you over.
Trey Jones says Vince can't be a creep and a snitch. Come on now.
The hell he can't, and he was.
Ole was gonna whoop their ass if he ever saw them. He ain't gonna say, "Do you know how much I sacrificed?" He gonna pull out his knife.
Man, I don't know, man. Like the knife over was just like took me over in this episode.
Yo, that was just so extreme. Like he's like, we're gonna do a blood oath. I don't believe y'all.
Nothing happens without color.
Need some color. He got some color. Something regular for these people back in those days.
Yep.
Ole's mother passes away in March of 1984. And while handling the arrangements in Minnesota, he with his son, he gets a call from Louise. She says the door to her office opened and Vince McMahon walked in.
Can you imagine?
And told her that he now owns the company. I own this company now.
Yep, that's a fact. Yep.
It's like, do I put my dick here or on your table? Vince McMahon, for God's sakes, I'm just saying, wouldn't be surprised. She says that she called Ole and told him that Vince stole the company. Louise thought that it was sneaky and didn't like the way they went about doing it. Ole and his son flew home immediately. Ole filed an injunction. They fought for 3 to 4 months, but it didn't matter.
Yep.
Old footage from Ole giving an interview where he notes there was a deal in the bylaws that if the majority of the stockholders wanted to change the rules, they could. Barnett was smart enough that he could do it while Ole didn't know. Should have done your due diligence, bro.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely should have done. Yeah.
Cornette says Vince was still talking to Ole and was offering him a job. He kept telling Ole that it was just business. Vince introduced Ole to Linda, and Cornette and his son recount that he went up to Vince and Linda and he said, "Fuck you and fuck Linda too."
I can see that part too. I definitely can see it. Definitely saw it.
I wish he gave the middle finger right in there, right in their face, like how the reenactment went.
It's definitely a funny thing. I was like, "Yep, this is it. This is the one for the night." I thought the color one was it. I was like, "Nope, this one was it."
Vince McMahon. I mean, Vince McMahon doing anything, man. I'm not surprised at any of these stories anymore.
Yep.
Hamilton says he went in on a Saturday and Vince McMahon was standing there. There was a man with broad shoulders like this with his arms folded. None of the talent knew anything. Roop was told not to come to TV. Louise said that she didn't go because she had already been fired. Bobby says Vince fired everyone and told them that if they wanted to, if they wanted to use them, they would call them. Don't call us. We'll call you. And then we go to Black Saturday. All this build up just to get to Black Saturday.
Right. This wasn't even on the Saturday. This didn't even happen.
All of this did not happen on a Saturday. This was everything building up to Black Saturday, July 14th, 1984. Fans turn on WTBS expecting to see Georgia Championship Wrestling, seeing Gordon Soley. Instead, they get Freddie Miller. And Freddie Miller introduces Vince McMahon. There was no studio audience, no wrestling in the studio, as instead Vince showed taped WWF matches from other parts of the country. Cornette says that fans of Georgia Championship Wrestling practically rioted. Dave notes that the fans bombarded the switchboards of WTBS as they screamed, "They want their wrestling! I want my wrestling!" Rich says that the fans were not buying what Vince was selling. Vince didn't want the promotion, but instead he wanted their TV spot. Briscoe
and that's
says
what he did.
Briscoe's like, I don't give a fuck about y'all niggas. He was like, I was excited. He was like, it was the future. And he calls it Green Saturday as it changed his life and fortunes. What a fucking stooge.
He lives up to it. He lives up to being what he was called, a stooge. I got my money, and it's been home sailing ever since. Him and his brother. Yep.
Ole's son noted that Jack and Jerry should have waited like Ole told them, but they didn't. Briscoe says that Paul Jones, the wrestler, called and told him that there was a hit out on him and his brother. And we see a reenactment of Ole paying someone off to kill him. The Stooge. That's how he got his moniker. We're learning how he got his moniker of the Stooge. Frantic Girl says fans was like, the fuck is this WWF mess?
It's not what they wanted to see.
Croco says Luis said that Ole wouldn't pay for a hit. He would do it himself.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The death of WCW, we get a preview of that at this point. Then we get back to the story. Ole is out for revenge. And we get the idea that he put a hit out on the Briscoes, but like Goku said, Luis doesn't think that's true, as Ole wouldn't spend the money and would have done it himself. She has a point. He would have been glad to do it himself, she says. Briscoe talks about the threats that their entire family received from the fans. Ole works out a deal with Vince to sell his shares, and then took that money to Ted Turner to get another slot. So we get championship wrestling from Georgia. He just took the Georgia and put it up from in front of it. On WTPS at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturdays.
7 a.m.
Vince is struggling, though, to connect with the Southern audience, as Cornette notes that this was a failure. Vince meets with Barnett and tells him to look for a buyer. The run for Vince on WTBS only lasted 1 year, which is longer than a lot of people thought he would last.
Would have last, yeah. Especially with all the conniving and everything to steal everybody's stuff. I think he did fair.
And he finds a buyer in Jim Crockett Promotions, for $1 million. That money is then financed. That failure, he finances it and pays it out and gets the money to finance WrestleMania. And the rest is history.
It's history. So he's still winning in the end. Even though he lost, he still won in the end with everything.
Gotta love it.
Genius.
Gotta love it. The WWF became the name brand for pro wrestling after that, and he blows by everyone else who can't compete with him. Ole's son says that he knows his dad held a grudge against Vince for a long time. He shows off a letter that Bill Watts wrote to Ole in April of 1987 about the significance of Black Saturday. In the letter, it reads, in regards to Vince, his legacy will be the destruction of the industry as we know it. I mean, you can say that in a sense, but he also took it to heights that it never would have gotten.
But I think he did something that I don't think the territories were able to do, if that makes sense, because you had all these territories and they weren't able to go to such a mainstream level like what he did. Sorry to say, but they were thinking still old school 1950s, and he was just thinking to the future.
Barnett was still Vince's right-hand man, but was still old-time wrestling. And Vince wanted to be modern. So in 1987, they had a difference of opinion, and Vince lets Barnett go. Just like that. You're in, you help me take over. All right, now you're out.
Yeah, you did what needed to be done, and now I don't need you anymore. Thanks. Bye. Here's your paper.
Chris says, still need to look into buying Death of WCW book, maybe another book about WCW you guys know about. That would be the best one. I think Brian Alvarez and his team did a good job of knowing anything, and they were studying and following professional wrestling so closely at that time. I was as well, but I was also like 8 years old. So my memory of things is vast and good, but not the best where I wasn't a teenager. A teenager, I probably would have been able to absorb the stuff and write down notes and stuff like that. I had the foresight to write down notes about it and stuff like that. And yes, Vince said, "You're fired." To Barnett, just like that.
Thank you. Your services are no longer needed. Have a great day.
I think you've grown out your use. Cornette, then finally the last part of this episode doesn't even go to Black Saturday. It goes to Vince McMahon. It goes right back to Vince McMahon, and they go over the fact that what's happened lately to Vince. Cornette starts it off by saying, "What goes around comes around," and we get to Vince getting turfed from his own company due to the recent allegations. Hamilton says that if you take a picture of Vince, that is why there is a human resources department.
I was like, that's cool. That's cool.
He credits Vince for revolutionizing the business, but there is also that dark side. Cornette notes that Vince was forced out by his own family, as I just realized that they were only talking about the first allegations at this point. I just realized that at this point. We get Cornette who says that, but he still owns 80% of the company, though, and he forces his way back into the company under the idea that he is overseeing the sale of the company. We get highlights of Mustache Vince. Endeavor buys WWE and combines it with the UFC to form one big sports and entertainment company. Cornette says that we are going to lose a lot of history and the last vestiges of old-time wrestling, as Endeavor has no feelings towards the history of WWE. Cornette says that Black Saturday was the canary in the coal mine. Yeah. Ole's, I love his analogies and sayings.
Yes, Cornette, he's great. Like, he can give you some lines and some analysis that you be like, damn, that's true. Yeah, you're right.
Ole's son says that was the moment that the business evolved into show business. Roop says Vince put thousands of wrestlers out of business, and the producers asked about the wrestlers that became millionaires, and Roop says a fact. He's like, it's only 3%. It's only like 3%. It's very small in comparison to the amount of wrestlers out there. Rich says that each time changes, and he still is holding on to the 80s. Hamilton doesn't think that they blame the Briscoes, but they blame Vince. He admits that it was the move to make, though. Dave says that cable television killed the territories, not Vince. That would have happened with or without Vince McMahon, as either Vern Gagne or Jim Crockett would have gotten there first. Dave does say that he doesn't think anyone else would have been as successful with it as Vince McMahon. And then we get a postscript for the show, and it says on January 26, 2024, Vince McMahon resigned from his role as TKO executive chairman, and that's the cops going to get him right now,
Yeah.
and his position on the board of directors after a former WWE employee filed a lawsuit against him alleging physical and emotional abuse, sexual assault, and trafficking, and this effectively ended his 55-year run with the WWE.
Yeah.
And we also get the postscript that Ole Anderson passed away on February 26, 2024.
Yeah. He literally just passed away like 2 months ago. But at least he was able to like give like his like they were able to like record and get some information, you know, from him, which I thought was like pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh wow. What an episode.
Yeah.
This episode was a mess. I do agree with Frantic World. But it was a very entertaining mess. You did get, you know, going over the episode again, there was a lot of information that I learned. Like I learned the origin of Gerald Briscoe being a stooge.
Yeah.
I learned that Vince McMahon saw himself at Walt Disney, and he was always he was basically like, I hate to tell everybody, Vince McMahon in the 80s, not that far off from Tony Khan in the 2020s. Son of an owner, buys into the company, takes over, gets his foothold, gets TV time on a Turner Broadcasting company.
And steps over anyone and step on anyone's necks to get where he needs to be. American way. Great job, guys. Great job.
American way. It's the American way. It's the cycle. It's the cycle of it's the circle of life.
It's a circle of life. Just like Jim Cornette said, it's like what do you say? What goes around comes around, and look what happened.
What goes around comes around, comes around. But yes, I thought this was a fun mess of an episode. So
Twilight Zone, like y'all said. Yeah.
What about y'all? Let us know in the live chat what you thought about this episode. We got Frantic World, who's, like I said it was a mess. We got Goku, who says season 5 was pretty good. I thought the Brutus and Harley episodes was okay, but everything else was good. Yeah. He says, curious if y'all are going to review Who Killed WCW when it comes out. Of course.
We are.
If it's on Vice and it's about wrestling documentaries, we will review it. We ain't reviewing any of that mess on A&E, but we will review Vice TV.
I haven't even watched most of the stuff on A&E. Like
I have not watched since like season 1 when we were reviewing it.
Oh wow. Okay. Well. Okay.
I have to go back and watch. I did watch the Roman Reigns one.
I didn't get to watch that one though.
That was good.
Okay. The one before that one was, you know what? I haven't watched really much of the documentary. I like the Rivals. I like to watch the Rival episodes. Those are good. But I forgot whose episode I watched that was pretty good. I think I can't remember. I gotta look at the list, but I'll tell you later.
We got Chris in the chat that says, "What is this about? Who killed WCW? Please explain." It's It's from the creators of Dark Side of the Ring and $7 Entertainment, The Rock's production company. They basically made a 4-part series about who killed WCW. It's a documentary, talking head style, documentary style, similar to Dark Side of the Ring. It's going to have The Rock on it, Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Eric Bischoff, Booker T. They have a lot of big names involved in this 4-parter, and that starts in June.
Yeah, The Rock got some big heavy hitters for this episode, so we should know that it should be won't be like what do they call watered down per se. Hopefully not. We'll get some like real truth to it and doesn't Yeah. And it's on Vice.
That's what Kevin Nash has been promoting it. He's been saying it's not you want to hear the real story about WCW and not the bullshit WWE tells you.
I wonder how his friends feel about that.
You know?
I mean, they are still like close and like they're friends, right? So we'll see what happens.
Goku says territories were like gangs, 100%. Like
Mhm.
gangs, like the mob. Trey Jones says the final boss is involved. I'm sold. Anything the final boss touches, he's got the DC stench off of him. He's back.
Yeah,
He's back.
yeah.
He's back. Yeah, they also got Vince Russo in the
Mhm, mhm.
Who Killed
You
WCW.
have to have Vince in that. You have to. The British Bulldog one I watched. That's the one. That's the last one I watched.
Wow. Yeah, that was like season 2, wasn't it? I think that was still
No, let's
watching.
see this season 5. I mean
Oh, it was
season
season
4.
5? Oh, okay.
Yes,
I
yeah,
just
4.
seen
Excuse
so
me.
many documentaries on British Bulldog that
Yeah, yeah.
we get Liva, second account says rest in peace, Ole Anderson. I agree with you. Rest in peace to Ole, and thank you to his son for contributing
Yes.
to this documentary here.
Yep.
Trey Jones says, I ain't trying to hear Terry's lies. It's gonna be great because you're gonna have people that tell the truth along with Terry telling lies. We get Goku who says, curious if we get a season 6. I think so. I think if Who Killed WCW was like a season thing, like something that was going to be more than a 4-parter, then that would probably lead me to assume that Dark Side was about to end. But the fact that it's just a 4-parter is something to kind of whet your appetite in between Dark Side of the Ring seasons. You're muted.
Sorry, while they get ready for next year, basically.
Yeah, basically.
So,
He did ask
it's
any
just noisy on my
ideas.
end. Sorry.
No worries. Any ideas for season 6?
Hmm. Who haven't we covered? Like who needs to be covered? I feel like.
I feel like it's recent. There's more like recent stuff from like the 2000s,
Okay.
2010s,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Like maybe one outside of the WWE filter on the Matt, Lita, and Edge love triangle.
Friend. Okay. See what you're doing there.
We've only seen that story through the filter of WWE, so I would like to see it outside of that filter.
And you could probably get Matt to talk more about it now because he's not signed with them or have any like ties with them.
Yeah.
As per se. Lita's definitely not talking.
Daphne is a good shout. China,
Yeah.
they done a whole other one. We reviewed that. They did a
Yeah.
whole other documentary about
That
her
was
fighting.
that was like a documentary that they doing like how the WCW one is. So yeah, we talked about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Ashley Manzaro is a big one because of the recent
It's
stuff.
recent stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would be a big one that they would definitely have to do. I'm trying to think of any other ones. I mean, the Saudi Arabia plane. I've been calling for that since like last season.
Oh, yeah, the one that happened a few years ago where they had to like
when they got held back for the WCW. Like Awesome is a good one for ECW fans.
Okay.
I'm trying to think what other ones, because they've already done Brian Pillman. They've done like the major names and major stories.
Right. So you would do
the Ring Boy scandal with Pat Patterson. That is a big one that they can do.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking Out movement.
Speaking Out movement. Yeah, that's a lot. You got a lot of people that could do that story on.
You could just do a whole big one on everything, or you could take individual people like David Starr or Marty Scurll and what it did to their careers and everything like that. Yeah. Bill DeMont is another one.
I don't even know who that is.
Bill DeMont is Hugh Morris in WCW. He used to be a trainer for WWE that has been accused of bullying and basically hurting people that he was training, such as like Kenny Omega, like other people. Like, yeah, he used to work for WWE for one of their developmental territories.
Perry Saturn is a good one. Raven, maybe.
Yeah. Speaking Out movement is like, you got to do like the Benoit 2-part style for the Speaking Out movement. But yeah, those are good ones. See, we just gave them season 6. Someone send us and tag Evan and the creators of Dark Side of the Ring. We just gave them their whole season 6. That's like 10. That's like 10 episodes already. We got the Heroes of Wrestling event as well. Jeff Hardy Victory Road. Jeff Hardy recently from AEW.
Oh, you see, now you're going.
Give it to me. I'm asking for everything.
Yeah,
Why
we
not?
want all of it. We need
Why
all
not?
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, the destruction of British wrestling because of WWE with
True.
WWE NXT UK. That's a good one as well. But
Mm-hmm.
Miss Krssi Love, let's put our thumbs in the middle for Dark Side of the Ring Season 5 finale, the Black Saturday, the Rise of Vince McMahon in 3, 2, 1. Thumbs up across the board. Out of 10, what did you give this episode?
8.5. 8.5.
I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a mess, but it was definitely educational, definitely entertaining.
I learned
And
something from this episode. Yeah.
yes, and they
Finally.
fleshed out the big villain of Dark Side of the Ring over the last 5 seasons. They have always
Exposed it.
alluded to this villain, and now the season finale of season 5, they gave us a full episode kind of talking about the origin story. It's like the Joker movie. It's like the origins of a villain.
Yep. So
Miss Krssi Love, who was your MVP?
my MVP is going to be can I say Oli?
Fuck you and fuck Linda. Yes, absolutely.
Yep, Oli. Honorable mention to Jim Cornette.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to Jim Cornette. I'm
Okay.
gonna give it to Jim because I've criticized him in other episodes where I didn't think he was really needed. He was needed here. Any episode he's needed in, I'll probably give him MVP. And overall, he's the MVP for season 5 because he was used in every episode.
Every episode, yes, absolutely. Jim Cornette for sure. Yep.
LVP for the episode.
Vince McMahon.
Of course it's Vince McMahon. Of course it's Vince McMahon. The rotten bastard. The villain.
Like last episode, I feel like it was the same one.
It's always Vince. It's always
Vince.
Miss Krssi Love, let everybody know where they can follow you on social media and when they'll see you again.
Okay, guys, thank you for joining us for this season of The Dark Side of the Ring. It's been great. You can follow me on Twitter, which is True Hill Krssi Love. IG is Krssi Love _1. I'll be back Friday here on the channel for Know Your Role on bodyslam.net with my tag partner Stephanie Hypes. And then you can join us back on Saturday because we were on Sunday. So we're back Saturday at 11:05 for True Hill Heat. So yeah, meet us there on Saturday.
Yes, I will be back with y'all tomorrow, 1:05 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yes.
AE Ramble with Jimmy Macaran reviewing tonight's AEW Dynamite. But until then, you can follow me on the Twitter machine at TrueHillSP3. Follow the gang, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at True Hill Heat. Patreon.com/True Hill Heat. $3 a month. You can get exclusive content. You can even become a free member and get a preview of what you can get over at Patreon.com/True Hill Heat. And check out all the great content we got on the channel, including our entire season 5 reviews, including our Chris Adams review, our sensational Sherry review, our Sandman review. Check it all out now. Check out Rated Raw review from yesterday with myself reviewing Monday Night Raw. And like I said, I'll be back tomorrow and tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We got Elite Heat with True Draw Josh watching AEW Dynamite. But for Miss Krssi Love, it is me, your True Hill Phenom, SP3. This has been our Dark Side of the Ring Season 5 finale review. Black Saturday, the rise of Vince McMahon. We are signing off until next time.
Later.